Every scar tells a story.
हर कहानी का एक चेहरा होता है और हर चेहरा एक सच छुपाता है। ये है रिवेंज स्टोरीज की दुनिया। Produced by Daniel Imran.
My name is Victoria Ashford. I'm 26 years old. The night before my Yale Medical School interview, my younger sister Chloe poured an entire bottle of bleach down the front of my only blazer. She stood there and smiled at me. My mother didn't even look up from her phone. She just said, "Stop making a scene, Victoria. It's just a jacket. You're always so dramatic." I wore that ruined blazer anyway. 6 hours later, I sat across from the Dean of Admissions. He stared at the bleach stain, then at my last name, and his face changed completely. He reached into his desk drawer, pulled out a folded piece of paper, and said with disbelief, "Wait, you're her. If you've ever been the daughter your family decided to make smaller, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or erased, this story is for you." Hit that like button, subscribe, and tell me in the comments, has anyone ever tried to steal your story? Because what my family tried so hard to erase was about to become the very thing that destroyed everything they built. I grew up in a 5-bedroom colonial in Wellesley, Massachusetts. From the outside, we looked like the kind of family the local newspaper covered every spring when they ran their photographs of the garden tour. My father, Richard Ashford, was a managing director at one of the oldest asset management firms in Boston. My mother, Eleanor, sat on 3 charity boards and the trustee committee of the Boston Symphony Orchestra. I was the older daughter. Chloe came 3 years later. From the day she was born, my mother spoke about her differently. Chloe had the right kind of face. Chloe had the right kind of laugh. Chloe had the temperament that people remember. I remember a piano recital when I was 11. I had practiced for 4 months. I played the piece without missing a single note. When I came off stage, my mother kissed me on the forehead and said, "You played well, Victoria." Then she turned and added, "But Chloe was 8. She hadn't played the piano in over a year. But that was how it worked in our house. When I was 10, I opened the second drawer of my mother's dresser looking for a pair of stockings. She caught me. She didn't raise her voice. She closed the drawer slowly and said, "Victoria, my drawer is private. I don't go through your things. You don't go through mine. That's how this house works." I never opened that drawer again. Not until I was 26. And when I finally did, I found something that changed everything. When I was 16, I sat at the dinner table and said for the first time out loud that I wanted to be a doctor. My father set down his fork. My mother smiled at me the way you smile at a child who just announced they're going to be an astronaut. The next week, at a charity event in Brookline, I heard my mother tell a friend, "Chloe wants to be a pediatrician." Isn't that wonderful? She's always loved children. Chloe was 13. She had never expressed any interest in medicine. A week after that, my father came into my room. He sat on the edge of my bed and said, "Victoria, medicine is a long road. Your sister has the temperament for it. You're better suited to support roles." That's not an insult. That's an observation he believed he was being kind. By the time I was 16, I understood what they had decided. They had decided which daughter would be the doctor. They had simply forgotten to tell me. I applied to Tufts on my own. I wrote the essays without showing them. I got in. I told my parents in the kitchen and my mother said, "Tufts is fine. It's not a school we brag about, but it's fine." My father added, "Don't expect me to pay for medical school after this. Your sister is the one we're saving for." Started Tufts in September of 2017. I worked 2 jobs through college. I took on debt. I didn't invite my parents to a single visiting weekend in 4 years. In May of 2022, I graduated with honors in biology. I drove to a small 1-bedroom in Brooklyn, signed a lease for $1,850 a month, and started work 3 weeks later as a patient navigator with the Joint Pediatric Oncology Program at Dana-Farber and Boston Children's Hospital. My job was to walk with families through the system, to translate, to be present. The starting salary was $58,000 a year. My mother, when I told her, asked, "Patient navigator? Isn't that more of a volunteer thing? Are they actually paying you?" I had been working there for 2 months when I was paged to room 4B on the pediatric oncology floor. That was the day I met Emily. Emily Donovan was 7 years old when she was diagnosed with B-cell acute lymphoblastic leukemia in August of 2022. Her mother, Sophia, was 38, a housekeeping supervisor at a Cambridge hotel. Sophia had immigrated from Honduras in 2010. Her husband, Patrick, had been a delivery driver from South Boston. He was killed on I-93 by a drunk driver in 2018 when Emily was 3. Sophia's English was strong for conversation, but the oncology team had just left after explaining induction protocol, and the words had moved too fast. Sophia didn't know what induction meant. Emily thought they were going to put her to sleep forever. I sat on the edge of the bed and switched to Spanish. I told Sophia that induction was the first month of treatment, the strongest month, the one that would either get Emily into remission or tell us what kind of fight we were in. I told Emily that no one was going to put her to sleep forever. I told her she was going to be very tired for a while, but tired is not gone. Tired is still here. When I stood up to leave that night, Emily reached out from the bed and took my hand. She didn't say anything. She just held it. I didn't know it then, but she had decided something about me. I came back the next day, then every day for a week. Then 4 to 6 hours a week outside my official caseload for 2.5 years. I read her Charlotte's Web I read her Charlotte's Web in the chemo room. She loved the chapter where Charlotte writes some pig into the web. One afternoon, halfway through the chapter, she said, "Victoria, maybe someone will write something nice about me one day." I told her of course they would. I didn't know I was hearing her plan out loud. Her window faced east. Her room had been assigned by lottery, but she treated it like a gift. Even on mornings when she couldn't eat, she watched the sunrise. In April of 2023, after a stretch of 2 days when she hadn't been able to keep anything down, she watched the sun come up and turned to me and said, "Victoria, the sun came up again." I made it. I'm still here. I wrote that down later. I wrote down the way her window faced east and how she watched the sunrise even when she couldn't eat. I wrote it down in a draft of a personal statement on a Tuesday in April of 2024. In a document I kept on the family Google Drive my mother had set up in 2017. I didn't know yet that anyone else read what I saved there. In June of 2023, Emily relapsed. She was 8. The bone marrow transplant we'd been hoping for never happened. The donor matches weren't close enough. Through 2024, she got thinner. By September, hospice had been initiated. Her attending oncologist was Dr. Beatrice Nelson. She had been at Boston Children's for 19 years. Dr. Nelson was the one who told Sophia in October that there were no more options. Dr. Nelson was also the one Sophia would later hand a folded letter to. Emily's primary nurse was Kelly Rayburn, who had been on the floor for 15 years. Kelly wrote in the clinical handoff notes 38 separate times, "Family coping enhanced by Navigator v. Ashford's presence." In October of 2024, Emily was very weak, but very lucid. 2 weeks before she died, she asked her mother to write a letter for her. Sophia wrote in pencil, in her own handwriting, exactly what Emily said. The letter was 1 page. It would matter more. It would matter more than any document my family had ever produced. A week later, on October 17, 2024, Sophia handed that letter to Dr. Nelson during morning rounds and said, "Please give this to someone who can help Victoria be a doctor." The next day, October 18th, Boston Children's held its annual donor appreciation luncheon. Oncology families were invited to thank the donors. Sophia attended. So did my mother, who was a trustee on one of the Boston foundations that funded the program. They had never met. Sophia recognized Eleanor from a photograph I had once shown her on my phone of my family at Christmas. Sophia approached her, introduced herself, and said, "I have something for Victoria." She handed my mother a folded piece of paper, a drawing. Emily had made it with hospital sketch paper and a number 2 pencil. On the back, in shaky handwriting, were 5 words. My mother said she would deliver it that night. She did not deliver it. I would not see that drawing for 14 months. The day after the luncheon, Dr. Nelson forwarded Emily's letter to a man she had trained with at Boston Children's in the early 2000s. His name was Dr. Hudson Marlowe. He had moved to Yale School of Medicine in 2018 and become Dean of Admissions in 2022. Dr. Nelson's note to him was one sentence: "For when this applicant arrives." Dr. Marlowe put the letter in his desk drawer. It would sit there for 14 months. Emily died in early November. I went to her funeral. So did Sophia. So did Kelly. So did Ingrid. My parents did not. My sister did not. 3 weeks later, Sophia came to my apartment in Brooklyn carrying a navy wool blend blazer in a garment bag. She told me it had been hers from a job interview years before. She hadn't worn it since Patrick died. She wanted me to wear it to my medical school interviews. Para que tengas fuerza, Victoria. Emily would want you to wear something with strength in it. Had no way of knowing then that Emily was already writing the future I didn't see yet. I had not planned to apply for the 2024 cycle. I had told my supervisor in early 2024 that I wanted to stay with Emily through the end. Ingrid had said, "That's a hard choice. That's also a doctor's choice. Make sure you can come back from it." I drafted a personal statement in April of 2024 anyway, knowing I wouldn't submit it until the following year. I wrote it on a Tuesday afternoon. I saved it on the family Google Drive because that was where I had saved every important document since high school. I wrote about Emily by name. I wrote about Sophia. I wrote about her window facing east. I wrote about the sentence I had said to her in Spanish on the first night we met. I closed the document at 6 o'clock in the evening and forgot about it. I didn't know that 12 nights later, at 2:18 in the morning, my mother had opened the file. I didn't know that 13 minutes after she opened it, she had texted my father about it. I didn't know that less than 4 weeks later, my sister Chloe would submit her own application to Yale School of Medicine with my words inside her essay. Chloe was accepted in March of 2025. She matriculated in August. By February of 2026, she had completed 8 months as a first-year medical student at the same school I was about to interview at. I submitted my application in October of 2025. I received the interview invitation in January of 2026. The interview was scheduled for Monday, February 16th. My mother called me the Thursday before. She said, "Come home Saturday night. Your father is making his pasta. We want a family dinner before your big day." I had not been back to Wellesley in 11 months. I said yes. I wouldn't have, except I thought a family dinner before a moment that important meant something. I drove from Brooklyn on Saturday afternoon, February 14th, 2026. I hung the blazer in the closet of my old bedroom, which my mother had half converted into a home office. Lincoln met me at the door and said, "Victoria, good of you to come. Chloe is home for the weekend, too, from Yale." Dinner was cold in the way that dinners can be cold without anyone raising their voice. Eleanor asked Chloe about her M1 grades. Richard poured wine. When I mentioned the interview, Eleanor said, "Yes, we'll see how it goes. Yale isn't for everyone." Chloe set down her fork and looked at me for the first time all night. She said, "You know I'm there now. You know what that means." I didn't answer. After dessert, I went upstairs and brought the blazer down. I wanted to steam it for Monday morning. The laundry room opened off the kitchen with a doorway into the family room where everyone was still sitting on the couches. I laid the blazer on the ironing board. I plugged the iron in. I turned my back for 8 seconds to fill the spray bottle at the sink. When I turned around, Chloe was standing in the doorway with a gallon bottle of Clorox bleach. The cap was off. She walked to the ironing board. She lifted the bottle and poured it down the front of the blazer. She didn't stop until the bottle was nearly empty. The wool absorbed it. The bleach hissed against the warm iron. The stain bloomed orange and yellow across the navy fabric, 18 inches long. She looked up at me and smiled. My mother, from the couch, didn't lift her eyes from her phone. "Stop making a scene, Victoria. It's just a jacket. You're always so dramatic." My father, half a glass of wine in, said, "Your sister is going through enough. Don't ruin this for her." I stood there with the iron still hot in my hand. I didn't turn it off for a long time. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I didn't throw anything. I had spent years before that night imagining what I would do if my family ever crossed a final line. I had imagined every kind of scene. What I hadn't imagined was that when the line was crossed, I would simply turn the iron off, fold the blazer over my arm, and walk. Upstairs, Chloe returned to the couch. Eleanor didn't look up. Richard poured Eleanor another glass. I sat on the edge of my old bed for 40 minutes with the blazer in my lap. The orange stain was already cooling into something permanent. I didn't try to rinse it. I knew I couldn't save it. I had used enough hospital laundry products to know what bleach did to wool. Then I noticed something. Chloe hadn't done this because she was angry. She had done this because she was afraid. I didn't yet know of what. I slept 4 hours. At 5:15 on Monday morning, I came down the stairs in the bleached blazer. The house was dark. My parents weren't awake. Chloe wasn't awake. I didn't leave a note. I drove 135 miles to New Haven in silence. I crossed Hartford. I crossed Meriden. The sun came up over my left shoulder somewhere outside Wallingford. For the first time in 14 months, I cried. I let myself cry for 30 seconds. Then I stopped. And I kept driving. I parked at the Sterling Hall of Medicine at 7:58. I had 3 letters of recommendation in a folder. I had a personal statement I had rewritten 6 times. I had a bleached blazer and a quiet morning behind me. The admissions assistant checked me in at the front desk. There were 8 applicants that day. Each of us had 3 interview slots, 10 o'clock, 11:15, and 1:30. My first was Dr. Phoebe Lindwood, Associate Dean of Student Affairs. My second was Dr. Hudson Marlowe, Dean of Admissions. My third was Dr. Reed Larkin, Director of Admissions Operations. The assistant looked at her screen and added almost in passing, "Your second interview is with Dr. Marlowe." He requested this slot specifically. That happens occasionally. I noted it. I didn't understand it yet. At 11:15, I knocked on Dr. Marlowe's door. His office was wood-paneled. There were photographs of children's hospitals on his walls. 3 framed awards. A desk with 1 closed folder and 1 open laptop. He stood, shook my hand, and motioned me to a chair. He was 60 years old. Gray-haired. Soft-eyed. Calm. He was silent for 5 seconds longer than was normal. He was looking at my blazer. He cleared his throat and said, "Miss Ashford, tell me about a patient who changed how you think about medicine." I had prepared 3 different answers for this question. I used none of them. I told him about Emily. I told him her full name. I told him her diagnosis. I told him about Sophia, about Honduras, about Patrick. I told him about Charlotte's web in the chemo room and about her window facing east. I told him what she had said the morning the sun came up after 2 days of NPO. I told him about the relapse, the hospice, the last weeks. I spoke for 6 minutes. He didn't interrupt me. When I finished, he didn't ask another question. He didn't thank me. He stood. He walked to his desk drawer, the second drawer on the left. He opened it. He pulled out a thin folder. From inside the folder, he took out 1 folded piece of paper. He set the paper on his desk. He didn't turn it toward me yet. "Miss Ashford, I want to be sure I am hearing what I think I am hearing. Emily Donovan. B-cell all. Diagnosed August 2022. Treated at Boston Children's. Mother Sophia. Father deceased. Window facing east. Charlotte's web. You are that Victoria." I said, "Yes. I have been waiting 14 months to meet you. To the people who pick who is a doctor, please pick Victoria Ashford." She held my hand when I was scared. She told them my words in Spanish when my mommy didn't know the English. She read me Charlotte's web in the chemo room. She is already a doctor in the ways that matter. "Please. Emily Donovan, age 9. This came to me through Dr. Beatrice Nelson at Boston Children's on October 18, 2024. Dr. Nelson and I trained together in the early 2000s. She forwarded it to me with 1 line, "For when this applicant arrives." I didn't know when you would arrive. I didn't know if Emily had survived. I learned that part later. This letter has been in that drawer for 14 months. "Miss Ashford, there is a second piece of evidence in your file that I cannot legally show you in this room. It was submitted by a third party. But I can tell you this, Someone else in your family used elements of Emily Donovan's story in their own application essay to this school last year. I noticed the overlap when your statement arrived this fall. I have been waiting to meet you to understand which version of the story is true.
खत्म नहीं, ये तो सिर्फ शुरुआत है। इंतकाम की कहानी अभी बाकी है। पार्ट 2 जल्द आ रहा है, सिर्फ इसी चैनल पर। प्रोड्यूस्ड बाय दानियाल इमरान।